wonky blood sugar can trigger states of anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
emotionality. Like it's a big thing. So a lot of holistic psychologists, professors, and psychiatrists nowadays are they're putting together dietary programs in concert with the treatments or medications that they're using because they understand that if I can keep that person's blood sugar, the incidence and frequency of poor psychological states. That's how potent like blood sugar. And then there's a whole hormone cascade, as you know. And then as
Mhm.
your hormones become suboptimal, your blood sugar response tends to spike higher and lower because you don't have all these other hormones.
Hi, I'm Missy the menopause midwife. I'm here to break down all the things about menopause and hormones that seem overly complicated, which is pretty much everything. With over 10 years of experience catching babies and 2 decades of intuitive massage therapy practice, I have spent the last few years deep diving into all things menopause to figure out why so many women are suffering and why there seems to be so much confusion about hormones and menopause. Calling on my midwifery experience and my desire to help women attain and maintain full autonomy, I will stay next to you during this life transition and help to explain the options as you step into your power and find optimal health. Let's chat about other things that Bioptimizers has for us. We're back because last time Wade and I got sidetracked. We went down rabbit holes and we focused on magnesium. We went deep on it and we barely scratched the surface of some of the other products that Bioptimizers has. So, welcome back, Wade. So, this episode is about next level optimization. There are so many levels of optimization, and I don't have them all enumerated, but that would be kind of fun to do at some point. But magnesium, particularly a complex like magnesium breakthrough, is one of the foundations. It's a non negotiable that sets you up for optimal health. So, what's next, you might ask? And I'm glad that you did. So, to me, blood sugar, digestion, and sleep. Although sleep is actually foundational, very base, like if you don't have sleep, you don't have anything. But we're going to actually talk about that as our last thing today because it's so important. But I do want to start with Berberine Breakthrough, which is one of Bioptimizer's products, which I love. Because if your blood sugar is off, your hormones are off because your body always prioritizes survival first. So when your blood sugar is spiking and crashing, your body has to jump in and fix it. So then cortisol goes up, insulin starts storing more fat, and everything gets a little chaotic. And meanwhile, your sex hormones are just trying to keep up. So your estradiol, your progesterone, your testosterone. And that's when you start seeing cravings, mood swings, bad sleep, stubborn weight. So when people say my hormones feel off, sometimes it can actually start with blood sugar. And that's why I wanted to jump in with Berberine Breakthrough because blood sugar is kind of having a moment right now, wouldn't you say, Wade?
I've been studying blood sugar response for a long time because of the bodybuilding world. The
Oh, yeah.
manipulation of blood sugar
Hmm.
is a significant aspect in two different elements. If you were to ask people what is the most anabolic hormone in the body, what would most people say? They'd probably
Testosterone.
say, right, it's
Yeah.
not. Most
Okay.
anabolic hormone in the body is insulin. So in the bodybuilding world, the regulation of insulin, either to gain muscle and the reduction of insulin in order to lose body fat are two key manipulative elements that bodybuilders do. That's why they have, for example, an off season and a contest season. So they're using insulin as a delivery agent for nutrients, amino acids, fats, carbohydrates, and stuff. And usually they'll stack it with carbohydrates and protein, for example, to drive more amino acids in while training a lot. Generally, in the off season, though, the bodybuilder will put away the mirror and they'll gain a lot of weight because they'll gain both muscle and fat. Then, when it comes down to the dieting season or the contest season, they're going to reduce their insulin to a really low level through strategic dieting and calorie restriction, and then tap into their body fat stores while retaining the lean muscle tissue. So, I always say that bodybuilders were the original biohackers. And the thing is if you go to an average bodybuilding and fitness show, the worst person on your local stage looks absolutely amazing in the gym. Like most people would like to look at that standard. So what I'm saying to that is you do not have to be a competitive fitness competitor or bodybuilder to leverage this science. However, if you compare that market to the general population as a rule in America has continuously elevated insulin levels. So they are living permanently like an off-season bodybuilder.
Mm.
And oftentimes they're not even doing the training. So there's no stimulus to put protein into the muscle tissues. All they have is stimulus to put fat and carbohydrates into what? Fat.
Mhm.
Okay. And so all of a sudden, people are going, well, I don't eat that much, but I have something sweet in the morning. I have something sweet in the afternoon, and I have something sweet in the evening, and my glucose goes through the levels. And even though I'm not eating that many calories, it's all going to fat. So
Mhm.
maybe if you're a lady that's sitting there going, I don't eat that much. I thought I'm pretty good on my diet, but I can't seem to stop gaining weight. It's usually not caloric related to start with. It's usually insulin because the other element of insulin is your body, when your blood sugar goes up, your body releases insulin to match that spike. And then the insulin starts to come down. Now, in fast acting carbohydrates, like basically everything they sell at the coffee shop that you go to in the morning when you take your kids to school, all the little snack bars and little items that you have to grab, in between work because you feel like you're hitting brain fog. By the way, when a low blood sugar often leads to tiredness or fatigue, right? Low energy.
Mhm.
High blood sugar will be coupled with an increase, a boost of energy, maybe a burst of thing, and then a sudden drop off and fatigue, sometimes serious fatigue where you'll literally fall asleep, and hunger. So the idea is to keep that blood sugar response or insulin levels to be moderate. Now, some people have attempted that. This is the foundational aspects of people who do ketogenic diets. The downside of doing an extended ketogenic diet is that you become very sensitive to insulin. So sometimes the negative effect is you'll produce results for 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever you're going on to, and you lose all this weight. But now you become so sensitive to anything, you go back to what your old diet was, and your blood sugar spikes exponentially. When you have a fast spike on blood sugar, your body releases a lot of insulin, more than it needs because it's trying to regulate this level. So what happens is it rises up to keep it, and then it crashes almost as fast. So now you're on what I call the blood sugar roller coaster. And you don't have all of the elements inside of your body to what they call repartition or to store it in the places that you want it to. Like excess sugar is going to be stored as glucose in your muscle tissue, which is what you need to do anaerobic training, weight training, explosive type movements. Fats are used in more endurance trainings and in fasted states. And then there's another element called ketones. And ketones you probably hear about. This is produced by your body during extended periods of low blood sugar,
Mhm.
oftentimes with either ketogenic diets or with fasting. And so that you will get these ketones being released in the body, which is a steady state energy that a lot of the ketogenic people go to. You don't need to follow any particular style of diet. I can do this with vegetarians. I could do this with, pescatarians. I could do it with carnivore people. I could do it, regulate blood sugar. The challenge is there's going to be a variation between the population of how their blood sugar response is and the types of food. The best way to get around this and figure out what's right for you is a continuous glucose monitor. The reason that is because you may be eating quote unquote a healthy low glycemic index. Glycemic index is just responding how much sugar response is in on the body. It's a little bit sketchy in the aspect that you can stack like carrots, for example, are high glycemic. Nobody's going to get fat eating carrots all the time. right? And ice cream is actually low glycemic because, or lower than carrots because it's got all this fat involved in it, even though it's tremendous amounts of sugar. But you can eat ice cream, a lot, much of it, and get fat. So it's not an entire institute, but with a continuous blood sugar monitor, you get to see each and every meal of how to create stable blood sugars. So why do we want stable blood sugars to begin with? Number one, you do not have food cravings because if you rise up and down when you crash, this is where it triggers hunger response. I'm so hungry. I got to eat something. The fatigue or sudden like wooziness or brain fog. Also with high spikes with sugar, these things or and low spikes, these can trigger people who are sensitive for psychological conditions like,
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, and all sorts of various psychological conditions. I'm not a doctor, but I would like to say that if you go back to the orthomolecular psychiatry work that was performed by Dr. David Hawkins, David Offer, and Abram Hoffer back in the 70s, they were taking people and putting them on low blood sugar that had severe psychiatric conditions and was noticing massive drops in the events. Wonky blood sugar can trigger states of anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
emotional, like it's a big thing. So a lot of holistic psychologists, professors and psychiatrists nowadays are they're putting together dietary programs in concert with the treatments or medications that they're using because they understand that if I can keep that person's blood sugar, the incidence and frequency of poor psychological states. That's how potent like blood sugar. And then there's a whole hormone cascade, as you know. And then as
Mhm.
your hormones become suboptimal, your blood sugar response tends to spike higher and lower because you don't have all these other hormones. And
Right.
so the challenge is oftentimes you get to this situation and this you might have been riding this roller coaster for decades and didn't know it. And now your hormones have crashed and the ride's a little scarier than it used to be. The weight goes on a little faster. The negative feelings and self-talk become a little bit more extreme. The disruption to sleep or energy levels becomes more amplified because your other factors in the body now become less effective in conjunction with your diet. Blood sugar dysregulation, I think, it addresses so many people.
I was so glad you brought up the continuous glucose monitors because I did a trial with one. I don't have any glucose issues that I was aware of when I asked for it. This was a couple years ago when you could get it for free. I don't know if you still can. You could get like a 2-week freebie if you just had your doctor call in a prescription. And it was great. And I followed the app and looked at everything. I always thought I had low blood sugar issues. Turns out what I had was I had big spikes and then when I would crash, I wouldn't get low blood sugar ever, but I felt low blood sugar. I learned what I needed to do. So, one was eating more protein forward, and two was having my berberine with me when I was going to eat something that might spike my blood sugar. And I no longer have that low blood sugar feeling almost ever. And so I thought that was incredible information for me from decades of thinking I was eating really, really well. And this is healthy food too. Some things would just spike my blood
Totally.
sugar that I wasn't aware of. I'm like, well, that's a low sugar item, not for my body.
This
So,
is why the continuous glucose monitor, for example, way back in the 80s or early 90s, Chris Aceto, which was a top bodybuilding coach, wrote a paper, very controversial. And it was the different cultures and races that responded to the same carbohydrate mix completely differently. So, based on your genetic and ancestors' heritage, which most of us don't even know what that is unless you've done a DNA test, and most people that do a DNA test, and what? I had those people in my background. You're like, I had no idea. Well, what's fascinating about that is you could give me like rice and I will see it's the same amount of carbohydrates of rice. I'll see a higher spike where I could have the same amount of potatoes and it's almost no response.
right.
Some vegetables will spike people through the roof. Some
Mhm.
fruits take coffee. I'm having a coffee this morning. Some people get a massive insulin spike from a cup of black coffee. I'm so grateful that technology, I guess, is a continuous glucose monitor. Talk to your doctor, get one, or your naturopath, and get one assigned to you.
Mhm.
It might be the most revolutionary aspect that will demonstrate how effective you can learn about the things that work for you. There's another element that happens for people that have had blood sugar wonky for a long time or are really struggling. And my business partner, Matt Glamp, that was his wife's situation. Her mother ended up dying from diabetes. She had to have her legs
Mhm.
amputated and other things. And when he tested his wife, just at the same time using continuous glucose monitors, it was just like 600 or something like that. It was just nuts. And he's like, "Oh my god, my wife's gonna die if she keeps doing this." So he started doing this, and Matt did a tremendous amount of research. He says, "Let's look at creating the most potent blood sugar stack ever created because I want to keep his mother-in-law alive and his wife." And so he crafted blood sugar breakthrough. He combined 13 different agents. Some are blood sugar regulators, some are repartitioners. And then what we did is we took a whole group of people, ourselves, and we started all wearing continuous glucose monitors and tracking blood sugar response. The good news
Mhm.
is when people take Berberine breakthrough, Berberine, by the way, is the lead product in this, and there is different types of berberine on the market. So if you
Yeah.
take the dihydroberberine, this is a much more potent form of berberine. So there's various degrees of berberine percentages and effective, and that particular nutrient is much more potent than regular berberine. Then there's all these other products inside of it that stimulate the effect that you want. When people would eat the same food that would cause a blood sugar spike by taking a few caps a berberine breakthrough beforehand, they would see anywheres between a 20 and 40% drop. That was what we did with our internal group. We do now have studies at our lab that's been demonstrated, and we're moving to human trials now. We are tweaking the formula a tiny bit in order that we can make some patented claims. So we suspect we'll
Oh,
have
nice.
that probably by the end of the year. We haven't put a lot of advertising dollars into that product yet. We will be as soon as the human trials are done, but it's extraordinary. Maybe one of the most potent products in our entire lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it really does change it can help you change your body composition. When you are like, just that knowledge, like Wade keeps saying with get the glucose monitor with it. I love that because it is so true, because you have the evidence then for your body. And I also think too that the higher quality product you get, like a berberine breakthrough, because you guys have thought about it, you've also thought about how your body is processing it, because I know that some people very few people get, like, kind of a nausea response from berberine. I don't have that personally, haven't experienced it with any of my clients. I have heard about it from some other influencers. So I'm really curious how they would do on berberine breakthrough, because I think this one is highly bioavailable and digestible and doesn't seem to be bothering tummies.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know what the
Mhm.
mechanism might be for other people. It could be anything from the capsule, the binders and fillers, elements that are in that berberine that isn't thing. Like there's a lot of
Right.
different things that can go wrong on a manufacturing side of things, and you really have to work extra hard to get all the right raws, to combine them properly, to get a lot of the fillers and binders and other agents that companies will use in order to make it easy to create and stuff. It's a choice,
Oh,
something that we are
yeah.
very passionate about though at Bioptimizers because, we always say no matter how high the standard is, there's always better and we keep looking for better all the time. That's why you'll see different versions of our products because we're continuously testing in our lab.
Yeah, I feel confident that as you find a better way to do something and make something, you're gonna change it. You're not just gonna leave it the same old, because that's what's worked all along. I really appreciate that as someone who's trying to have people buy things that really are gonna work for them in my studio and in my office. Maybe this is a good time to kinda bring in the conversation just briefly about berberine and GLPs, because in my mind, they can work synergistically. I'm just curious what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I'll be the first one to say I'm not an expert on GLP-1, beta agonists and all that sort of stuff. I'm a sidebar observer of the field. And what I can say, and I do work with someone, particularly who I deal with our high level clients and stuff like that. She's amazing. She's well researched and she does with a lot of cases. Her strategy always starts with diet. regardless of. And the other thing that she does is she uses a fraction of the dosage that's recommended. So,
Microdosing.
so for most people, getting inside with a holistic health practitioner, naturopath, doctor, that's some coach that's familiar with that. I think that's the best way to go. I think what happens for a lot of people is they get on it, they get a very quick response, they don't feel hungry anymore. And there is a euphoric state that kind of goes with kind of when you're not eating for a long time, a lot of ketones are released. And if you've had foggy brain and things like, there's a very attractive cognitive state that can emerge from that. It's confident, it's clear, it's non-reactive. Again, part of that is that stabilized blood sugar, ketones being used as a fuel source. And so you're getting the benefits almost of like an extended fast,
Mhm.
and you're not fighting to feel hungry.
Right.
That's a very attractive place for people who have struggled with, managing their appetite. I happen to be one of those people, by the way, for people that don't know. Like I have a gene that makes me feel full. I don't feel full very easily. So
Mm.
if I don't watch myself, I'll just overeat very easily. And, I'm also really good at fasting. So when I fast, I really love that state and I can love to stay in it. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what happens with the GLP-1 crowd. But if you can stack small amounts of the GLP-1s, this is according to, the experts I follow in the industry, with something like Berberine breakthrough before your meals,
Mhm.
then you can stay at what I would say a healthy dietary intake, that you're eating enough to support your muscle tissue and you're not getting a spiky blood sugar off it either.
Mhm.
So by doing that, this gives you the best time to stay in caloric restriction without the hunger pains and without any excessive spikes that makes you want to go off that diet. Now you got to couple that with exercise because
Yeah.
it's a 50-50 loss on muscle mass to fat tissue. Here's the worst news. I was just talking to Carl Lenore yesterday on this. He was doing an episode on Superhuman podcast. And he was looking at the data and the research was saying that people that come off of GLP-1s often experience radical increases of hunger and they'll just keep eating excessively. And here's the part that people didn't know. No one knew why that was the case, but they eat until they gain enough of the muscle mass that they lost. Now, that's one thing if you're 25 years old or 30
Mhm.
years old. If you're 55 or 60, the amount that you're gonna have to eat to get that muscle mass, much of that muscle mass is not gonna come back, and you're gonna put on more fat than ever before,
Mhm.
and what happens is people go back, and they often up the dosage, and
Right.
that's it, and next thing you know, if you watch the Oscars or any of those celebrity stuff, it looked like the Vampire March or something. You can see that sunken face through excessive GLP-1 use. And
Yeah.
it's carving the muscle tissue away from some of the most beautiful, attractive people in the world, and it's like, "Whoa, what's going on there?" It's so
Yeah.
noticeable to me, to someone that tracks that stuff. Check it out. Check out your favorite celebrities over the last few years, like, people like Margot Robbie is a great example. Not to call her out or anything, but she's definitely not one of the most beautiful actresses ever in Hollywood in recent years, and there's something not right over there. Kelly Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne's daughter, who struggled with weight for a long time. She's almost wraith-like, and then so you're seeing this in political candidates even and stuff. It's
Mhm.
shocking. So it's like, what is going on? That's abuse of GLP-1.
Yeah, and I think GLPs can be really life-saving for some people,
100%.
but then also, I'm not quite sure I understand why people who are already pretty in shape are using, like, full dosing. I don't quite understand that because microdosing is incredible for bringing down inflammation, reducing a little bit of that hunger noise, but not so much so that you're not eating and you're not in that fully fasted state. And I think part of it is just because the mass marketing of it. And if people are working with someone, you can talk through that dosing and just keep it at a micro level. So, like you said, you're still getting that hunger just enough, and then you can temper it too with the berberine. It's kind of like, to me, the GLPs work from top down. They're overriding that hunger, turning it, lowering it. but then the berberine works from the bottom up, kind of stabilizing that blood sugar. And so I think it's really nice to have both things together. But you have to have enough food in your body to want to go lift weights. I
That's
mean,
right.
I always harp on this with my people. I'm like, lift heavy shit. Don't be over there just doing cardio. You've got to move your body. You got to move heavy things. You got to strain those muscles so that they will work. So, yeah, I think that they can be a really nice combo. But yeah, I think there is some definite maybe overuse, maybe too high of dosing.
Look,
And
I
it's a
come from the
bummer.
bodybuilding community, and that industry is a great microcosm on what I would call the extreme mandates of life. It's a super crazy discipline sport,
Mhm.
but the tendency for maximization in that world is pretty extreme. And
Mhm.
the general consensus amongst most of the athletes is like, yeah, well, if it's not things aren't working, up the dosage,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean?
One's
And so
good, 10 or better.
and to be frank, almost all of the anti-aging, longevity, hormone cocktails, insulin regulation, anti-cortisol, almost all of it was pervasive in the bodybuilding world for years and years and years, and it was condemned, but now it's moved in. But that
Yeah.
tendency for extremeness exists within every human, and the more likely that you are towards the high performance side, and the fact that you're listening to this podcast, thinking about what your next move is in your life or your health or whatever, means you're likely one of the people that are going to lean towards, hey, a little bit more might be better side. So recognize that about us and have a little bit of humor. I think it's
Mhm.
really important to look at ourselves, and kind of laugh and recognize, "Hey, you know what? I got some patterns. I got some tendencies. It's okay. How do I manage that?" And that's where working with a coach is really, really a game changer because
Mhm.
now you can have conversations with someone who can hold you accountable to both the positive and negative talk and then to identify cognitive biases.
It's so true. Oh, and I did wanna show really quick before we move on to Masszymes, which I'm also obsessed with, is that I carry my all my little things. They go in my purse. This is my traveling apothecary. It is not
Nice.
fancy, but I have these little tiny baggies and I label
So
them. So
cute.
that's my P3OM. But I just keep them in my purse. It just is tiny little thing. It just folds down into nothing.
Love that.
And I always have all my staples with me because it's usually when I'm eating out that I'm eating things that I wouldn't normally eat, that I'm gonna need those things.
That's the same from
Um,
I'm the exact same way. I have a little pack that I carry around. And once I became a dad, I went back to my 1980s fanny pack,
yeah, fanny
right?
pack.
Now I did get a designer one, but
Nice. Well, this goes
I got
inside
I'm
my
living in
bag.
LA for Pete's sake, so, but I but I do the same thing. I got a bunch of
I
little
don't just
baggies.
carry this around.
No, no,
Just
I got a
open.
bunch of baggies and pills, like, probably people might think I'm dealing something or something, who knows?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but it's funny.
I get accused of that all the time. My kids are like, "Hey, mama, my friend Millie, she just had a whole bunch of sugar. She feels terrible." She's like, "What do you have for her?" I open up my
Right?
apothecary. I got all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff. Speaking of feeling terrible when you've eaten something, Masszymes. Let's talk about it.
We created Masszymes literally for myself. When I got out of the Mr. Universe back in 2003, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. I had been contest dieting for really and training for the better part of almost 2 years. That severe caloric restriction with excessive training, when I came out of it, my blood sugar, everything was wonky. I met a doctor. His name was Dr. Michael O'Brien. He was famous for bringing Bernard Jensen back from a cancer that was metastasized to the bone when he was 85 years old and 78 pounds. And he brought him back in 8 weeks. And one day later had him 114 pounds. It's in the book, Bernard Jensen, Come Alive. He became my mentor. And I had just went through this process and I had met him beforehand, actually, at another lecture. And then after the Mr. Universe, he was at another full one. Then I went and then I talked to him, I said, "Well, what did I do wrong? I'm like the cosmetic ideal of fitness, and I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. What's going on here?" And he said, "Wade, you've learned to build a body from the outside. in. I'm going to teach you to build the body from the inside out. And he
Mm,
started teaching me about the digestive health process, how food actually is broken down and digested. Now, I was a former exercise physiology student at university, all that sort of stuff. They didn't really explain this. He was talking about probiotics. He was talking about enzymes and hydrochloric acid and interrelation and bad bacteria and good bacteria. And nobody was talking about this back then.
mhm,
And he said one of the things that the bodybuilding diet I'd done, because I was using all kinds of protein powders and things like that, had really disrupted my digestion. And when I came out, my blood sugar was wonky, my digestive enzymes were depleted, my bacteria cultures were disrupted. And he says, "We got to fix this." So I went on his enzymes and what to now is today P3OM, probiotic breakthrough.
mhm,
Also good is the new name. Those two products. So the probiotic breakthrough, he gave us that patent after he passed because he wanted
mm,
us to carry on the message. And the Masszymes, what happened, we were taking his product. And afterwards I said, I have to take a little bit more than other people because we have a higher protein diet. By the way, I got back into shape in like 6 months. I looked better, felt better, and never gone back. I want to make one that's a little bit more protein centric because they were dealing with mostly sick people, all kinds of illnesses, like everything you can imagine, and bringing them back from the dead, basically. And I was like, "That's cool. I wanna look on how do we look, feel, be as strong as breast." I'm not licensed to help people overcome death, it's not my
right.
game, right? So, Matt and I got together and we worked on this with the formulation team, experts and scientists on this, and we came up with Masszymes, and we started using it as a recovery agent and for the athletic community, bodybuilders, fitness competitors, strength athletes, things like that, in order to be able to add more muscle to the body without using drugs. And I was doing drug-free competitions. And using that, we coached over 15,000 people. The results were extensive. In fact, I still have people from those early years that have been on a subscription for that long. So this is
Wow.
22 years ago,
Well, okay,
23.
wait, I gotta because my brain is kind of exploding right now. So, you're saying Masszymes or enzymes for building muscle. So, can you help me understand
Yes.
that process?
Yeah, so what people don't understand is when you go through the digestive health process, enzymes are involved in everything from thinking to blinking. You have 25,000 different enzymatic processes in your body, everything metabolically. According to Dr. Edward Howell, who is kind of like the godfather, pioneer of enzymatic research, you have like a total bank account of enzymes in your life, which gets depleted over time. Women in particular, interesting enough, after they've had 2 or 3 kids, oftentimes notice a big drop off in a lot of physiological process, hormone regulation. Often that's because they're down regulating hormones because their exhaustion of their enzyme rate is different. Now, every other species on the planet eats their food raw. When you consume raw food, you get not only the protein, carbohydrates, fats, fiber, minerals, vitamins, all that, such fatty acids, you get the enzymes present in it. The living enzymes then get converted into your side. But so whether you're a herbivore, a carnivore, an
Mhm.
omnivore, you eat a diet and you eat it in a raw state. Humans came up with this idea to irradiate, pasteurize, and cook their food. Now, there are advantages to that from it kills off bacteria, bugs and things like that, or you can store it for extended periods of time. That downside is you wiped out all the enzymes. So now your body has to manufacture enzymes or take enzymes it's using to run its brain or your body or other things and devote it to digestion. We all experience this at what I call the Thanksgiving dinner syndrome. If you got energy from food, you should be the most energized person in the world after Thanksgiving dinner. You have the turkey, you have the mitzvah, you have the potato, you have the pumpkin pie, whatever. You got all that stuff. Now, what happens after that meal? It's the sprint to the living room where people are lying on the floor, passed out on the couch, drool running down their face, snoring in the chair, grandpa. We've all seen that movie.
Yep.
And then people wake up after and they're hungry again and, like, they're back in the fridge, get another piece of pumpkin pie. Well, what happened here? Now, no one's going out to the gym. No one's going out to run a marathon. They're trying to stay awake during whatever football game's going on, maybe.
Right.
And that's it. That's like what happens. Well, what happens is when you eat that mass amount of food, you have to shunt so much of your natural enzymes into digesting it. It shuts down your brain. It shuts down running energy to your muscle. Like, it's like, no, I got to break this down.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
So
Okay.
when we developed
Mhm.
Masszymes, we're like, we're gonna make the craziest formulation ever in the enzyme world. In fact, when we built it, the scientists that we were working with, they're like, this is going to be really expensive. How are we going to do this? And when we first came at it, we could only do small runs. We could do this. We had people that would buy pre-purchase and they were buying 500-600 bucks worth, and they wouldn't get it delivered until another 2-3 months later. And we did this for years because we started this company with like 100 bucks. We didn't have the money to do this. We were just freak guys trying to figure stuff out. As we got more customers and everything, we started building up files and we became more efficient ways to do it. So we made it's the all in one. It's
It
like
is.
enzymes for the masses. First off, it's got 5 different proteases. Proteases are the things that break down protein. This is the most expensive enzymes that are out there. You have to get them from various places, like Japan is a really great enzyme country. So these deal with 3.0, 4.5, 6.0, and this accounts to the different pH range. Nobody deals like this. And these certain amino acids that they're cleaved at the top makes your uptake of amino acids. That makes it easier to build muscle,
Oh,
faster
okay.
recovery, and it also sets up your microbiome because bad bacteria tend to consume undigested proteins in the body, right? So that's a big
Okay.
deal. You also have amylase and lipase. So amylase, that breaks carbohydrates. Amylase is for carbohydrates. Lipase is for fats.
Mhm.
Okay. And so we've got all those in there. We've got 17 different types of enzymes and enzyme categories and things, plus cofactors that amplify the effect of this. And the amount of what's called HUTs, proteolytic digestion units, is dozens of times. So when we've done our lab testing, this is what we've been able to pull. We have a lab in Bosnia with 20 PhDs and master students that do round the clock experiments. They actually created a digestive system. They do InfoGest, which is the gold standard digestion. And they've ran virtually every single top brand enzyme in the company through this process with us. The closest competitor is 600% less effective.
Wow.
The number one selling enzyme company in America is 2,400% less effective. But what's happening is a lot of people are going to their store, they're seeing these big displays, they see these things about enzymes, they take this particular company and they go, "Oh, enzymes, oh, I don't really know
Right.
anything." I'm telling you, you put a few Masszymes before your meals, you don't feel that stony feeling at the end of things. You don't get the bloat afterwards. You don't get the poofiness afterwards. You don't get bound up.
Right.
Your bowel movements are smooth. You notice that your blood sugar is better. You know that your brain is another great thing to do is take it on an empty stomach. Take it on an empty stomach before you train. You'll see how much more active you are in the gym. Those enzymes, if used in an empty stomach, will actually go into the system and do all sorts of things. And when I fast,
Mm.
I take 25, sometimes even up to 100 Masszymes a day on fasting days because they go in and they're workers that clean and scrub and clean out everything. So my results
Oh,
when fasting is significantly higher
okay.
than most people who are just fasting on because I start loading enzymes into the system. And
Mhm.
because I'm not eating food, those enzymes get converted into metabolic enzymes. I've seen people with scars on them that take it regularly on empty stomach. The scars go away. I had a lady that had about an inch scar and about 3.5 inches from a necrotic spider. I put her on that. She took 5 and 5 twice a day. She was a small lady. And it was about 9 months, her 3.5-year-old daughter, she's holding her and she grabs her arm and says, "Mommy, what happened to your scar?" Because it was usually about a half inch thick and it went completely down. And what happened, she would take it and she'd feel itchy here. The proteolytic enzymes were so potent, they were going in there and breaking up the fibrous departments inside of that. So
Wow.
for people oftentimes that have, like, you might have heard about people that have arteriosclerosis or plaquing in the system, like nattokinase and things like that. Masszymes works very similar to a lot of those things by just
Okay.
cleaning out all your blood, all your arteries. So don't just take it before meals, take it on an empty stomach.
Wow, I'm blown away. I did not know that. I love, like, sharing with people these great little hacks that we have and how we're like you always say that, weightlifters were the original biohackers. They totally were. So are the people in the vitamin industry back in the day because I
Yep.
actually knew that about enzymes, what you learned about how we're born with all the enzymes we're gonna have, and slowly over time they dissipate. But I've had people come to me a lot of times and be like, "Yeah, I've tried enzymes, they don't really do anything." And I'm like, "'Cause I don't think you have the right ones." And I remember when I was younger, we would take what we started out with, we had papaya enzymes. But I am
Yeah.
so excited. So I lift on an empty stomach because I get up super early and I go lift and I can't eat that early. And I'm gonna try Masszymes. Well, so that brings me to P3OM, or
Hmm.
now I'm sorry, it's being renamed
Probiotic
Probiotic
breakthrough.
Breakthrough.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you help us understand the word proteolytic before
Yes.
we dive in?
This might be one of the most, important words you can learn to be successful in a long-term diet, because now we're very protein centric
Mhm.
or protein forward, or like everything, the trend that's coming in the marketplace right now, you heard it here, Missy, is going to be protein everything.
Mhm.
You're going to see protein at your corner store. You're going to see protein at the restaurant, just like you saw keto and all that sort of stuff back in the day. You're going to see this everywhere. Why? That is where the trend is. But just increasing your protein doesn't mean anything. There's the quality of the protein,
Right.
there's the source of the protein, there's the agents that are with the protein, all that sort of stuff. And many of these protein forward stuff are using suboptimal ingredients, binders, fillers, combinants, contaminants, chemicals, sweeteners, you name it.
Mhm.
You think that you're getting something good, but then you end up with a digestive problem. You're like, oh, well, yeah, I'm trying to eat more protein, but I can't break it down. That's where the word proteolytic comes in. Proteolytic, when it's referred to specifically with bacteria cultures or probiotic cultures, means it's a bacteria culture that feeds on protein. So many of us have heard a lot of people talking in the last couple of years about prebiotics. Well, what is a prebiotic? It's a fancy name for the food that bacteria eat. So in the final stage of the digestive process, before you eliminate your food, I have the 5 stages of digestion: taste, touch, feel the food, sense the food, whatever, chew the food, let the food go into the cardiac portion of the stomach. Hydrochloric acid breaks it down. Then it goes into the enzymatic stage after 30 to 60 minutes, where the enzymes come in, or you've taken them preemptively. This further breaks down the food. It then transits into the intestinal tract, and this is where the bacteria cultures where you have 10% good, 10% bad, 80% opportunists. This is what's called your microbiome. These bacteria live in colonies. They compete against each other, and then depending on your diet, that colony is shifting all of the time. Most bacterias live off fibers and carbohydrates, the large majority of them. That's why you get sugar cravings oftentimes if you have a proliferation of sugar-based bacteria that are suboptimal for your microbiome. They send off little chemicals to your brain and says, "Oh, I think I'll have a Mars bar." You know? Right? I'm like, "Oh my God, I'll just have a little treat here, or a little spike pop." Well, you're not telling you to be hungry. The bacteria that are addicted to sugar are sending chemicals to your brain saying,
Mhm.
"We need to eat." Concordantly, if you wake up in the morning with the crusty eyes, bad breath, drowsiness, or, like that brain fog, can't quite see, takes a little while to wake up your eyes, guess what? You have undigested proteins floating through your system.
Mm.
Okay. Or leaky gut. You get that poofy blood, like that bloated feeling after you eat. You always feel kind of sickish or squeamish after. What's happening? You've got a perforation of the lining. It's a single cell lining. And you've got undigested proteins entering into the blood. Your body creates an immune system response because it thinks it's a virus attacking it or something like that to break it down. This thickens the blood and will decrease energy. And the other element is, if you've got bad bacteria that are actually consuming the undigested protein because you didn't have your enzymes or didn't eat the right proteins or didn't do all that sort of stuff, it produces chemicals like indel, skatal, and stuff, which causes disruptions in cognitive function, brain
Mm.
energy, immune response, all that stuff. So P3OM is very, very unique. It is one of the few bacteria cultures that eats protein. It loves protein. Loves a lot of things. It'll eat up just about anything, but it really loves protein. Why is that an advantage? Because if there is undigested proteins inside your intestinal tract, and there's a highly good chance that there is in just most people, it goes in and eats those proteins up. That starves off the proteolytic bacteria that's bad, the ones that are making the bad chemicals that feel you sick and squeamish and brain fog and all that sort of. So what happens, it'll starve those guys out. The other thing is when you look at viruses, viruses have a proteolytic coating. That protein coating is what it connects onto the cells. And because of that, P3OM has been able to demonstrate, according to the US patent, I'm not supposed to say all that stuff, but if you go on the US patent, you'll see its impact on that.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. This stuff is so potent. I've seen people, this is undefeated, food poisoning on the ground, ready to go to the hospital in total misery. I give them 10 P3Ms. In 30 minutes, they're feeling better. And if they're not 100% there, I say take 10 more, and within an hour, they're fine. It wipes out the bad guys. It eliminates the undigested proteins. It's a transient strain that goes through the body. I believe it is the most potent anti-sick bacteria there is.
Okay.
In the last,
I love it.
since I've been taking that for the last 23 years, I have been sick on 2 occasions in 23 years. If
That's
I feel a little
impressive.
scratchy throat, if I feel a little snuffle coming on, what do? I double my 4 capsule dosage that I take every night before bed, and I take 8. That's it.
Yeah, so you take it before bed. I actually usually recommend probiotics at night because the gut mobility and motility is slower, and so there's just more exposure to the gut. Is that your thought about that too,
Well,
or do you have a different
yes, but
reason?
those are all true. The other thing is consistency. I put it by my I put it right by my lampshade at night with my magnesium breakthrough, and I just take them before I go to bed. The other element is because they're a transient strain, they'll go through the body and start picking up the undigested proteins into system. So when you wake up, you most people that suffer from brain fog or bad, rather crusty eyes in the morning, they'll notice they start to feel better really good. Within 2 or 3 weeks, they start waking up like, I'm awake. The lights are on, right? Like I can see and I'm not pulling crust out of my eyes. So, because that's your body just detoxifying and trying to get the stuff out of the systems and bleed it out of the systems. Excessive
Right,
body odor, that's another one as well. That is, high protein diets and stuff like that often will lead to stronger body odors. You know, and this is a personal story. I used to be one of those people. I used to have a high pro, I was an athlete, and so, man, I just stunk, man. It was like, God, I had to take showers so many times a day. It was terrible. When I went to a plant-based diet and started using Masszymes and P3OM, I live in a state now I don't use any deodorant
nice.
because I don't have the chemicals that are being taken
Right.
out of my system, right? And so for someone that went from that state to this state was remarkable, and I attribute it to my ability to break up those proteins that end up in that ammonia smell, and those
Yeah.
byproducts that create that smell.
Yeah, that's super important. So if you're using your P3OM and your Masszymes, like what is your so we know you take your P3OM at night. What are your thoughts around using your Masszymes? Like kind
Yeah.
of
So I use the
most
Masszymes
beneficially?
before every single meal. Most people, 1 to 3 is all they would need. I'm own the company, so I use 5, and then I take 5 on an episode. I had to make a company because 'cause I'm, like, so gung ho on enzymes, and I've gone so deep in the research. I am firm belief that this optimizes my capacity for maximum lifespan. And if you get into the Food Enzymes for Health and Longevity book I refer to, and you
Mhm.
start using this, you will be convinced as well. And another sidebar to that, for those who are trying to get pregnant, and that research about, the lowering of sperm levels and sperm
Mhm.
motility and things
Mhm.
like that, which is a huge, huge things out there. When I went to the doctor before I got pregnant, the doctor was like, "What are you doing?" And so my active and motive sperm count was through the roof, and the mutation levels were almost negligent. And going back to that mutation almost, I think a lot of the sperm issues and egg issues that women and men are having there is because of the distortion of the lack of enzymes. They shocked when they submitted results. So I don't know
Mhm.
if that's exactly the case or I'm an anomaly. I intuitively ultimately feel that's the case. And we have a lady that we work with that does all the high level genetic and hormonal optimization. Her standards is to put people on Masszymes and probiotic breakthrough on their fertility programs. She's undefeated.
I love the idea there. I'm gonna do a little more digging around because my background is in midwifery, so I'm curious about
Right, it's fascinating,
fertility
right?
and yeah, I know. I'm like, "Wait, I need to put that part of my brain on and really just dig into that because I that sounds I don't work with fertility, but I know there are a lot of people out there who do, and maybe some people who are listening who are struggling with fertility. So, I think it's worth looking into.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
people are.
yeah,
Stack
and
the deck, get the right person involved, get your diet on track,
exactly.
but I'm confident that Massime and Pizarro can really ultimately shift the equation in a way. That's how important digestion is.
Do you have 2 minutes to just go through sleep breakthrough?
For you, I have 4.
So what can you tell me about sleep breakthrough? It seems like it's got a whole lot of different things coming into it that just are gonna hit all the areas of sleep need. So I just wanna hear you riff on it.
Well, yeah, well, Matt, my business partner, he's struggled with sleep his whole life. It's a genetic condition. His parents have insomnia, this type of thing. So
Mm,
and I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I sleep pretty well. So he decided that he was going to attack his sleep program. I would recommend people read the Sleep Chronotype book because it turns out there's different types of people. Some people are early morning risers, are called lions. I'm one of those people. Some people are like late night people that stay up late. They're like wolves. And then there's like
mhm.
bears that need a lot of sleep. And I think it's dolphins is the other one.
Dolphins,
Or something.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think they just like to have fun or to sleep whenever and go whatever. I forget what exactly, but it's a great thing that that'll regulate the in household or friend arguments of how much sleep you need. It
Yes,
varies for person to person. He's a bear.
a
I'm
lion,
a
I think,
lion, so
right?
I'm up
Yeah.
early going at it. You're probably a lion too. You
I
told me you
am.
got up early, right? So the bottom line is there's a sleep architecture where you go through. It's like 3 to 4 what they call sleep spindles a night. So your first stage is the first ability to go to sleep is called sleep latency. How quickly you go to sleep when your head hits the pillow. Then you get into another stage, which is often called the REM stage. And the REM stage is the rapid eye movement that goes on, and that's associated with what they call associative um, memories uh, condensement. So the reason why you can't remember every single day of your life is because of REM sleep. Basically, it runs through the system, collects the data, makes the associations of that, integrates that into the holistic picture, and then you have these compressed automatic responses or automatic associations that are similar. And by the way, just on that note, if you talk about the change in perception of time as you get older, the more that you do the same thing all the time, the faster the perceived movement of time. So there is
Oh.
an argument by stacking your life full of a lot of things. That was very powerful for me because 'cause I'm like, yeah, I kinda like to do the same thing every day, but it also makes time go by faster, so I gotta work on
Mhm.
that one. Anyways, have a baby. That'll work. That
Yeah,
helps.
they'll mix it up for you.
That they mix it up for you, right? So, then there's probably the most critical stage, which is the deep sleep stage. That deep sleep stage is the stage where is all the regenerative and repair, and the if you can make that time as long as possible, then that is where the most regenerative aspects is like, that's what makes you feel being refreshed or not or whatever. And then you'll kind of go into another like REM cycle. So you go through these cycles that go through, but do you want to get at least one big deep sleep cycle in that? So what Matt did in his quest for the perfect sleep product. Now, this is a guy that has a whole sleep architecture. You can probably listen to him online somewhere where he's recorded all. He cools the temperature in his room to, like, in the low 60s or whatever. He's got blackout
Crazy.
curtains. He has a Faraday cage to reduce the
Oh,
EMF
wow.
things,
He's got all the
right?
things.
Yeah, he's got a specialized no, it's got like he's like, "I gotta solve this problem. It's
Right.
killing me, like, it's holding me back."
Yeah.
All of that stuff, and he's always experimenting stuff, and he's got all the sleep tracking device and you name it, right? So he's meticulously put everything out to create this formula, and then you take this sleep formula, which will boost both how quickly you go out and then how quickly you get to the deep sleep stage. And then he's got another thing called Sleep Optimizer, sometimes it's renamed Dream Optimizer. This can really make a profound effect for people who are traveling
Hmm.
or who wants to play the, you know, dream state because you're gonna kinda amplify your REM sleep. So people who can't remember their dreams oftentimes like it because they can remember their dreams, and people who are really into the dream world love it because they get an extension and expansion of their, dreamlike adventures. So it's not many people know about it,
Okay.
but if you really get down the sleep cycle, so, with the sleep breakthrough, we do have a capsule version if you prefer capsules. I like the powder. And that's, and like I'll usually take a capsule over a powder for me for convenience because I don't, scoop in and all that sort of stuff. But the reason I use the powder is because we can alter the dosage. So for example, my wife, who's a lot smaller than me, she likes about a 1 scoop serving for sleep. I like to take a 2 scoop serving for sleep. However, when I travel and I'm disrupted on time zones, I take 3. I
Okay.
take 3 and it puts me out faster.
Nice.
There's a variance on how much you'll need, and so I like the powders, the tasty, like, blueberry formula,
It's
stuff like that, they taste great,
yummy.
that it's so yummy, it's like
Very
a little
yummy.
treat before you go to
Yeah.
bed. In fact, there's some big influencers like Shailene Johnson that are making sleepy mocktails at night, and so instead of having a cocktail of wine, they make a nice drink and they drink it. So, that is an amazing sleep amplification program. I will say this, 98% of people are gonna get a boost from it. 2% of people, if they have the strange genes, will get us they'll get more spiked off it.
That's me.
If you are one of those categories, don't worry because we're gonna send you your money your money back from
Oh,
purchasing it. No harm, no hurt, Josh.
I
So
know you
so
guys
so
are amazing like that, but I'll just share and if you don't want your money back from that, just share it with a friend because they're probably in the 98% that can do
yeah,
it at night, and I'll just take it sometimes in the day because I like how it tastes so much.
right,
It's
it's
so
tasty,
good.
right?
So, yeah, and I feel like there's bamboo in it. Is that right?
Instead of using some of the other, agents and fillers, we can use a bamboo element, which has got some positive benefits for health side of it and doesn't have any of the negative side effects. So, yeah, we try to use the big thing in, when you're taking a lot of supplements and stuff, there's these flow regulators and excipients, and we do everything we can to cut all that sort of stuff out and use alternatives that are safe, healthy, and may have some added benefits to it. So we're really conscientious about the quality of the formulations. It creates a lot of problems in manufacturing. Like we've been working on a particular product we're scheduled to launch this year. We have been working out those elements in the manufacturing side on that product for over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Hasn't come out. It's a new one that's coming out with us because we've noticed there's a problem within the general industry. We know what that problem is. There's another problem that people haven't discovered about that industry, which is pervasive to it. And we're gonna come out and make a better we're gonna make a better product than everybody out there in that
Ooh,
particular market. But we understand why no one else has done that because of all of these problems with little tiny elements that most people overlook unless they're in the industry.
interesting. I can't wait to see what it's gonna be. Well, Wade, thank you so much. You gave me way more than 4 more minutes. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us today again.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and thanks so much for promoting the product and living the good life. It's a great industry to be in. It's, provided me a wealth of fun, and I'm so grateful to be here, so thank you for having me, and hopefully I'll
Yeah.
see you again soon.
Thank you. And thank you, my lovelies, as always, for joining us here today to get smarter and feel more in tune with your body. If you take a moment to rate and review this episode, that would be amazing. But even better, just send it to a friend who could use a boost of confidence as they are navigating midlife. Be well.
Thank you for joining me here today on the Menopause Midwife. If you'd like more information or to work with me, feel free to check out my website and book a wellness consultation at ohm406.com. Be well.